First, thank you everyone for coming, and thanks for having me here. And for today's presentation, I will mainly talk about two parts. One part is specifically about one work I made for 2016 Gwangju Biennale. And another part is I will go through several works from my previous practice. So I will start from the work in Gwangju Biennale. The Gwangju Uprising, alternatively called May 18 Democratic Uprising by UNESCO, and also known as Gwangju Democratization Movement, was a popular uprising in the city of Gwangju, South Korea, from May 18 to 27, 1980. Estimates suggest over 600 people have died. During this period, Gwangju citizens took up arms when local Cheongnan University students who were demonstrating against the Cheongdong-1 government were fired upon, killed, and beaten in an unprecedented attack by government troops. The uprising eventually ended in defeat on May 27, 1980. The event is sometimes called May 18 Uprising. The official May 18 archive has been stored in a building used to be the Gwangju Catholic Center, where it was one of the important spots for the journalists to take photos during the uprising. The main purpose of May 18 archive is making public display of archival materials through permanent or temporary exhibitions, establishing the relationship with all the democratization movement around the world, and keep archiving the materials. But due to the regulation of the publicity of the personal archive, all the archiving site storage is not accessible to the public until 2030, 50 years protection. After many times negotiation, I have entered once into the real archive room, but the director pointed at certain boxes without open it and described vividly the object inside, but I can only use my imagination. So here I will just start while the video is playing. The video is part of my installation, which you will see later, but I will start the presentation. So this image is showing it's called the preparation room. It's a real existing room inside the May 18 archive, which later became the title of my work for the Biennale. So in this preparation room, as you can see, there's some of the furnitures, and also there's an image there explaining like how this room and actually how the archive room has been constructed. Like they made a lot of layers of the floors and walls and ceilings in order to keep everything safe. And in order to show the archive is in a good hand. So this is the top floor. They still keep one room from the original building, the Catholic Center, where from that window, the journalist took a very famous photo of the uprising on the street downstairs. So actually, my first original research about the project has been divided in two parts. One is, of course, extremely interested in the archive of the uprising. And also another part of the research is focused on the archive of the Biennale itself. It's because the Gwangju Biennale may be the very few biennales which devoted to a specific historical movement after the government made the decision of reopen the case in 1993. 2 years later, city of Gwangju organized the first edition of Gwangju Biennale. During its past 22 years, many works have been commissioned by the Biennale, which need to somehow relate it to the movement as a constant response to the history and keep reminding the importance of the movement. So the original idea was to look at both of the archive in order to start my work. But as it slowly went on, I discovered that both of the archive are actually not accessible. They're existing, they're there, but they're not. I cannot, for example, touch them or read them. I give you both example. First, about the May 18 Uprising Archive is just I cannot enter the room, and for the Gwangju Biennale Archive is like they are archiving it themselves, but they always give me the excuse that they are archiving it. So that's the reason I cannot access to it, and for example, I asked for one commission work from just 2 years ago, from the 2014 edition, and done by a Japanese artist, Ei Arakawa. It's a live piece, and I asked her for more information about the work. But after 3 weeks, I received a YouTube link, which shoot a video shoot, 1 minute video shoot by audience. Actually, I got nothing from the Biennale about just 2 years ago, the previous edition. So as you can see, it's made a big surprise for me, and it's also kind of make me to rethink about all these things and about what can art really do according to this situation. So. I had totally visited Gwangju maybe 4 times for the research, but each time also due to the constant change of the budget of the project, I can only stay 3 days. So, but for the most of the time, for the first 2 days, I have to wait, because every time I go to the both archive, I made a request and then I have to wait 2 days to have an answer. But most of the time, I cannot really see what I want to see. So I just start to went out with local artists, with the owner of my hostel, with the owner of the restaurant nearby, to learn more about the place, because I'm a foreigner for this city. But it's also surprisingly, like, although the whole city, the Gwangju Biennale organized so many events for us to invite different people to talk about the uprising, but all of them sounds like the same. It's like a highly edited, highly organized narrative of the movement. But as I got closer to the local people, that they rarely mention it, although most of them know why I'm here, but they actually show no interest in talk anything about it. So I started just to went out with the artist friend, and from there, and they took me to different places and for their own gatherings. So I started to take photos as a diary. And most of them used abandoned schools at their studios. Is because during the uprising, there are a lot of gatherings in the schools. So later on, a lot of schools has moved out from the previous place, so they are empty all the time, so they just took over. And then I found one box of index cards from the library, and then I decided to took it with me for a one-day trip into the mountain. And then this box actually in English, the cards, and it's about the early artist works, but I found very well-known artists like Vito Conci, Bio Viella. I believe they participated in previous editions, so I just took them with me and to showing the title of their work in the Biennale archive. And these images play also an important role, is because this is the window in the real archive room of Uprising Archive. There's 2 windows, and from the window there's this curtain. So every time I go there, the director will pull up the curtain and tell me this is the archive. Everything is there, but the only thing is nobody can enter. So this is the final installation of this work, is because the only thing I can touch is the furniture. So I measure all the furniture very carefully, and to remake those structures, like empty structures, and paint it with black paint mixed with charcoal. And also to show all the images I took during my research, and also with these 2 curtains showing those 2 windows. So I will also start from this work from 2012. Maybe we can stop the video. So I will talk about my previous work. And for my work, I won't say like I work with archive, because there's in China, maybe like Carol introduced a little bit yesterday, like there's very few existing archive which as public can access to. So I maybe developed my own strategy, and I follow the certain stories, follow certain people's footsteps, including my grandfather, and he's now 93 years old. And the first time I work with his, let's say, archive is from this exhibition. So because I'm interested in the history of museum in China. So I did some research about this Chinese guy. His name is Zhang Jian, and he is the first Chinese who opened a museum in China in 1905. And at that time, I decided to kind of mix his story with my grandfather's things. And the only reason, maybe just because Zhang Jian died in 1926 and my grandfather was born in 1925, so I see my grandfather's life is actually, his whole life is like what Zhang Jian has imagined of a new China. For this exhibition, I divided the space in two parts, the bright room and dark room. So the bright room, there's only one work about Zhang Jian, is this wooden box I put under the floor. So it's, again, a model of the exhibition space, but as you can see, the white room and the dark room, and inside I put some personal objects, which is from Zhang Jian's granddaughter's memory. As she described, during the Cultural Revolution in 1966, the Red Guards dig out his grandfather's grave. It's because they thought he's a very rich man, he must hide a treasure underground. But at the end, they found out only those objects: a gentleman hat, two metal box, one fan, and one pair of glasses. So I've tried to find those things from the antique market and just to put them together instead as an exhibition and put the title Personal Belongings. I see it as the last exhibition Zhang Jian curated for himself and then last forever. And in the dark room, there's 10 sets of photographs I selected together with my grandfather from all the photographs he has, maybe around 50. So we kindly divided into 10 different stages of his life, and start from the very old one from his grandfather's photo. And for the rest of the photos, I all show them back, is because all the photos, on all the photos, he wrote very basic information of each things he can remember. So this set is from the 70s, as he got quite a special position in the party, in the government at that time. So he had the opportunity to travel to France, to Mexico, to Tijuana, because he was leading different group of exhibitions to show a good new country around the world. And then later on, I had this exhibition, and once again, I kind of use another part of the story from my grandfather. Is the far there is the a set of slides. So all the works in this exhibition had the same name, Revisit Memory, but just with different years. So this is from his memory about his hometown, because he left his hometown when he was 16 years old, and he never got back. And I go there for the first time. According to his memory, I just took photos wherever I feel I can relate it to. And another part of this exhibition is also started a new line of my interest. My work is this expedition trip happened in China in 1908 to 1909, organized by Robert John Sterling Clark and the founder of Clark Institute in US. So this expedition trip for me is, the importance is that it happened in the northwest of China, Shanxi, two provinces, and later it became the red zone, like actually the test ground of communism, early communists in China. So at that time, that was an unknown area, so this expedition initiated just to make a map of this area in order to explore it more. So from this photo is the Robert Sterling Clark and Arthur Sowerby. I have to mention Sowerby is because because of him that I learned about this expedition. Is he later became the director of Asiatic Society Museum in Shanghai for 7 years, and also related to my research about the museum history. So the Asiatic Society Museum was one of the first museum in China, and it was a natural history museum. And Sowerby himself is an amateur naturalist, and he joined this expedition. And also because of this expedition, he decided to stay in China later. And this is also work related to this exhibition, but this suitcase actually is the suitcase from my grandfather, and inside is a paper rubbing of a stone. And another part of this exhibition is I recreate this corner. Is because during the preparation of this exhibition, I kind of create a story of my own, and I decided not to write it down and just told the story to all the gallery staff. And so during the opening and the exhibition, they will tell the audience one by one, and they will not also write it down, just the oral communication. So just later, I developed more of those works. For example, like this one is those 10 sets of photos, because I returned the photos after the exhibition. But before I returned them to my grandfather, I rephotoed the photos in order to get a new set of negatives. So I developed those photos in darkroom, not to put them in the fixer, and took them out so that all the images disappeared. And this is also another work related to the expedition about one guy. His name is Hazrat Ali. Because of his death, the expedition had to stop. It was an accident. He had a fight with a local villager, and he died. So I rephoto myself riding this empty saddle and use this stereograph, is because this technique has been widely used during the same time when the expedition happened. And as we show, we use this antique stereoscope. So last, I will just mention a little bit about the most recent project I did in this region, in northwest, in Shanxi, in Xi'an, the capital city of Shanxi. So, because through the recent research, I realized that actually start from the 70s until now, and this whole area became the main area of the government to recycle or to drop the satellite parts, or anything from the outspace will be first choose to drop there. It's because it's a wide open area and few people living there. So this building is actually the satellite control center in Xi'an. And in 1970s, the Chinese government launched the first satellite, the East is Red, #1 into the sky. So this project is somehow revisits this historical moment, and also the new meaning of this area, to combine it again with the story of my grandfather and also with the expedition trip. This is the expedition route, and these are a set of photos I found from the media, from a newspaper, from website, and I just paint all those fragments into black. And again, those set of photos with the expedition route. And then this book is also from my grandfather. It's actually mainly Edgar Snow introduced this red zone in 1930 in order to introduce the development of Chinese communism. And it became a very important book for my grandfather, is because at that time he was working in a French concession in Shanghai in a factory, and under the influence of his colleague, which is a secret communist, and he reads the book every day to him. And that's why he later decided to go to, he wanted to go to Yan'an, the capital city of those red zone, to join the university there. But in order to do that, he had to join the party, join the army first. He'd never been there. But this became his initiative to start his life later. And so I returned the book to him, only had a 3D scan of the book, so I showed the scan of the 3D print of the book, together with this meteorite. It's a Chinga meteorite, found in 1913 here in Russia, at the border with Mongolia, and I titled together them The Star. So it's, and at last is this sound installation. It's a small music box. It's because the satellite has the only one function, is to play a music in outer space in 1970s. The music is about the East is Red. And according to the government information, that this satellite is still in the outspace, maybe still playing this music. Thank you.